For those of you who have not noticed, I'm a large black man. For those of you who don't see color, I'm African American, okay? And for those of you who are slightly offended by any of that, I just want you to know that that's not my intention today. My goal today is to use my story to start a conversation. I believe that our stories have the ability to strengthen the community around us. In regards to the black experience, my story is fairly average. There's not a lot of frills around my story. There's not a lot of titles around my name. But there are 3 honors in my life that I'm incredibly proud of. First, I have the honor of being a large black man who lives in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Whoa. I thought you guys were laughing because it was a joke. I was like, that's not a joke. Second, I have the honor of being married to one of the most marvelous white women that Coeur d'Alene, Idaho has ever produced. Shout out to my wife. And thirdly, I have the honor of being called a child of God. Now, around each one of these honors, there are stories that can be offensive. But what I have learned as a large black man in America is that if we push through these offenses and truly learn to navigate stories, then we can come out the other side with perspectives that can be strongly beneficial to society. Let's take my first honor, for example. I have the honor of being a large black man living in North Idaho. Now, you might say to yourself, Tyler, why is that an honor? Why does it even matter that you're black? Well, for me personally, because I love being black. But also because for our friends in this area, for their small kids, I get to be one of the first black people that they ever meet. For my nieces and nephews, I get to be one of the first black people that they build a relationship with. I get to shape their opinions about black people based on my story. It's also an honor because as a black man, I represent the vast history that comes with being black in America. I have the honor of being the descendants of not only African American slaves, but of Africans. You see, as a black man, my history doesn't begin with slavery. On the continent of Africa, black people built vast empires. I'm just now learning of places, of civilizations like Timbuktu, of men like Mansa Musa. It strengthens me the more I learn to be proud of who I am. Originally, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. Some of you guys might know that as Louisville or Louisville, but it's Louisville, it's okay. I'm gonna help you out. Also, some of my forefathers who were held in slavery were held in Louisville, Kentucky. After slavery, my ancestors, David and Martha Spencer, left the prominent plantation known as Farmington, which is actually still there. You can Google it, Farmington in Louisville, Kentucky. They left that plantation and moved just south of the plantation to a community then called Petersburg, which actually has now been consumed by a neighborhood called Newburgh. And in my heart of hearts, I kind of wish we were still in Louisville or that we were in Louisville because inevitably there would be somebody in the crowd who would yell, "Newburgh!" It's okay, I know. Just navigate the story with me, folks. It's okay. Stay with me. In the same community of Newburgh, generations later, at a gas station owned by my great uncle and former Tuskegee Airman, Mr. Frank Weaver, my father and mother, yeah, please, yes, yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. At his gas station, my father and mother met. You see, Glenn C. and Cassandra Swan had both grown up in Newburgh, but they also both shared the experience of traveling internationally with the United States military, which enabled them to learn and navigate other types of people's stories. These same stories later on in life would inspire them and would strengthen them to move their family to the east end of Louisville, even though there were stories that told them not to move to the east end because it was predominantly white. There were stories that said there's these negative things that could happen. My family still thrived. My father eventually became a city mayor and mentor. My mother, a city commissioner, mentoring young people at the same time. We grew up in a neighborhood called Worthington Hills that was extremely diverse. But I really believe that it wasn't until middle school that I actually learned how to navigate stories. To be 100% honest with you all, I hated my schooling experience. Not just because of the small minority of white young males who made my life pretty hard, but also because of a system that in my mind supported them over me. But regardless, my parents gave me this childhood surrounded by amazing and successful businessmen and women that looked much different than me. Again, my parents taught me how to navigate stories, different people's stories, at a young age, and I'm forever grateful for that. Through my college years, I moved to Kansas City, and I was inspired by this international prayer ministry that was a beautiful picture of a bunch of different types of people coming together with one goal, to pray for the nations. That's actually also where I met my wife, which brings me to my second honor in my life. I have the honor of being married to the most beautiful, marvelous, amazing, I could just say all these things, but hardworking and humble woman that's ever come from Coeur d'Alene, I feel like. When I first met my wife, she told me she was from Coeur d'Alene, and I instantly was like, wait, are you from France? Or where are you actually from? Because I had no clue about Idaho or North Idaho. I thought there's a North and a South Idaho. I was very confused. I was like, North Carolina, South Carolina? No. But as our relationship grew, my wife started to tell me these stories of Coeur d'Alene. It was almost like Avonlea or The Sound of Music. She told me about growing up in the mountains, about frolicking in fields. Y'all see me almost fall just now? She told me about growing up swimming in the Clearwater Lake, about just the small town Coeur d'Alene, Idaho experience. And because I thought this place seemed amazing, I was like, let me go ahead and do my Googles, and so I looked it up. But the story that I was Googling was, the internet was telling me much different stories than the stories Ashley told me. The internet told me stories of a town that was ruled, the culture was ruled by white supremacists. People would tell me the stories of North Idaho and the hate that came out of North Idaho. They told me these stories that kind of looked a lot like the stories that I had seen or heard of in the Deep South. But I knew this girl from Coeur d'Alene who was amazing, and I was like, wait, that doesn't add up. Well, the time came, and we came to Coeur d'Alene. I came to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho for the first time. Now, before I go into that story, let me pause and tell you guys a story that's very prevalent in the black community. It's the story of a black man who hangs out with different types of folks, predominantly white folks. He falls in love with this white lady, and the white lady takes him back to meet her family in the middle of the woods somewhere. Oh, you guys have heard this story before. It's not just, okay. So then you'll know what happened next. Then the black man is never heard from again. And the white family will say, oh, he got lost. Needless to say, my first experience was in the backwoods of North Idaho. So the time came, we flew into Spokane. I got to meet my amazing now mother-in-law who's in the audience. Give her a hand, ladies and gentlemen. I got to meet her. And when I say she is the truest depiction of North Idaho, she's amazing, amazing woman. She drove us into Coeur d'Alene, where I got to meet my father-in-law, who again, true depiction of North Idaho. Just a little bit more liberal than my wife's mom's side of the family. So I have these two I have conservative North Idaho and liberal North Idaho. It's great. So as we're driving around Coeur d'Alene, we stop at this one shop. Back then, it was on Sherman and 4th Street called Java Coffee. And I remember walking into this place and thinking, listen, these stories are not true. Look at these hippies. Look at these hipsters. What are you talking about? But as my father-in-law walked us around the town, as we walked the boardwalk, and as we walked through Forest Sherman Park, he told me the stories of the white supremacists who would march up and down Sherman Avenue in the streets in the areas of town. But he also told me about the white townspeople, the white business owners who in anti-protest would turn their backs as these white supremacists spewed their hate speech to this town. You see, the stories that the internet told me, they were true, but they were mildly one-sided. Well, the day came, it was Thanksgiving. We went out to Ashley's mom's house to just have a good Thanksgiving meal, get to know everybody. Now, my wife's stepfather, Casey, is a true North Idaho redneck. I love this man and I respect this man. I respect him so much that before calling him a redneck on this stage, I asked him if it was disrespectful to call him a redneck. And in true redneck form, he looked at me and said, "I'm proud to be a redneck." So I was like, hey, that's what's up. Yeah, for real. Shout out to him. I've actually learned more about hard work and about the hard work and Western relaxation than I have probably from any other white man in my life. I really do respect this man. But that day, I thought he was gonna kill me. So at some point during that Thanksgiving day, Casey says, "Tyler, let me go show you the real North Idaho." And I was like, wait, bro, I mean, do you guys remember the story from the black community? Because I do. Needless to say, I went. We got in the truck and we're driving up to somewhere off in the back cuts of North Idaho, up the saddle somewhere I still don't know the name of. And at one point he pulls the rig. He pulls the rig over to the side of the road and says, "I need to check something in the back." Now, at this point, you know, there have been very few times in my life where I felt like I was legitimately going to die. But at this point, I was waiting for a hot bullet to just pierce my chest. I was literally, I could have sworn he had somebody up in the woods ready to snipe me. I was waiting for a truck full of white dudes with shotguns and ropes to pull up. But nothing actually happened. He got back in the truck. We hung out, built relationship, and I really believe that a lot of misconceptions were broken down that day. Let me say that one more time. He got back in the truck, we hung out, started to build a relationship, and a lot of misconceptions were broken down that day. And I can honestly say that in the backwoods of North Idaho, in that little cabin, I truly felt loved and welcomed. It's the same love I felt when a few years later my wife and I got married. It's the same love I felt when almost 4 years ago now we moved to Coeur-d'Alene. And it's the same love I feel when I walk up and down the streets of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. One of the most frequent questions that I get living here in North Idaho is, Tyler, as a black man, do you deal with racism here in North Idaho? Do you feel safe living in North Idaho? And every time I try to reply the same way. I don't feel safe as a black man living in America. You got to understand, even though I feel accepted, I still know that I live in a country that was not built for me. I live in a system that wasn't built for large black men in North Idaho or in Kansas City or in Kentucky. Though I feel accepted and loved by this city, I still watch every car that goes past my house. Though I feel accepted and loved in this city, I still keep a pistol ready pretty much all the time. Though I feel, did he say pistol? Yeah, I said pistol. On TED Talk stage? Though I feel accepted and loved by this city, I still know that as a black man, at any moment, my life could be in danger just for being black. You know, I have to really think about my life. And every day I have to remember that as a small black boy, feeling accepted didn't keep me safe. And as a large black man, feeling accepted won't keep me safe. That's why my third honor is very important to me. being a child of God. It'd be very easy for me as a large black man in North Idaho to take the hurt of my childhood, to take the pain and anger that I feel when I think about the black experience in America and use those to justify me separating myself, me isolating myself from everybody in this room. For generations, people have used the name of Jesus to justify hate. In this very town, a group of people used the name of God to justify hate. But the truth, my truth, is that without God, without the name of Jesus, I would hate everybody in this room. In Jesus' story, I've learned love, I've learned humility, I've learned grace, and I've tried to learn forgiveness. Here's the thing. If I stop at feeling accepted in this town, if I stop at feeling loved by this town, then I will not challenge my sphere of influence to honestly navigate the stories associated with being black in America, with Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, or with God. I also won't prepare myself for the stories to come. You see, one of these days, my wife and I hope to have some kids. We hope to have some little mixed race babies running around Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And when that day comes, I'll have to share with them the last story that I want to share with you guys. It's the story of a German Nazi doctor and an African-American drill sergeant who actually was stationed in Germany. Both men have stories, both men have stigmas, and both of these men will be my children's blood great-grandfathers. If you are white, be proud to be white. If you are Asian, be proud to be Asian. If you are black, be proud to be black. But put yourself around people. Learn to navigate the stories of people who do not look or think like you. Here in Coeur d'Alene, there isn't a whole lot of racial diversity, but there is a lot of cultural diversity. Would you agree? What would happen if we started there? What would it look like for the liberals and the conservatives to get together for a cup of coffee, to share stories? What would happen if the hippie got together with the redneck to share a story? Because honestly, they don't look that different. Let's be very honest. Stories might be different. They don't look that different. What would happen if we all got together and started sharing each other's stories and learning each other's stories? Because really, there's a perspective in each one of regardless of the mindset, regardless of the politics, there's a perspective in each one of those stories that could benefit society. What would happen if here in Whiteopia, shout out Rich Benjamin, if we truly became the example for the country, if we truly learned to push through the negativity, to push through the offense, and we honestly started to navigate each other's stories? Thank you.